What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Sales Remastered. My name is Daniel. I'm your host. I got a special video for you today. I actually had a chance to sit down with Minh from What's a Mortgage. You know, you probably don't even need to work in the industry to know this guy. Probably see his content everywhere. Very, very successful. I mean, I've been saying the same thing for literally the last 7 years since when I started posting videos of how to create a brand as a loan officer, as a mortgage broker, or as just an LO in general, especially if you're trying to generate purchase leads. And what I appreciate about Minh is that he does it very well with regards to how he attracts buyers, consumers, and clientele. Also like the way that he's super authentic as well. He's not buttoned up. You don't really ever see him in a suit, but he's very real, and he does his content in a way that I think is a good example and a model that you could reference if you are a mortgage loan officer and you're trying to build your own brand. Anyway, we had a chance to sit down for a few minutes, and he asked me a couple questions that I think are very common. One of them is, if you're just coming into the industry and you want to start in a call center, some things to know about a call center and things that you want to know before you start working in a call center, and what makes a call center different versus being a mortgage broker. And also we covered, if you come from a call center, why you should not hesitate to become independent, why it's actually easy and you'll be more successful if you actually considered making that leap. Shout out to him, man. I appreciate the time that we are able to share, but I wanted to cut up some pieces of that interview because I think that is very relevant to my audience. If you haven't heard of him, What's a Mortgage, look him up on IG. An originator as well. He's a manager. He has his own team. He's created an outlet or a stream of leads and consumers that flood him and his team with leads and inquiries. So he did it right. Shout out to you, man. Enjoy the interview.
What up, fam? This is Minh from What's a Mortgage. I have my boy, Daniel Nyker. First of all, I don't know how you got that amazing character name from Westcap. He's one of the managers here, and of course I'm here to talk to him about what's going on with the industry and the big goals he has for 2024. What up, Daniel? How you doing, brother?
Chilling, man. I'm blessed. How are you?
I'm good.
Sir.
So the name, let's get into the name. So where did you get this name from? This is like a Magnum PI. If you even know Magnum PI, this is like Miami Vice name. Like, where did you get this name from?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I'm probably the only Filipino that doesn't have a Spanish last name.
Yeah.
But I trace back the roots, and it actually came from France, Europe. So as European descent, and I think that's probably why it's so distinct.
I got one Filipino joke. Yeah. You know what the one Filipino banana said to the other Filipino banana?
What?
You hurt my feelings.
Almost.
So we were talking about earlier. Tell me about your background as a loan officer.
Yep. Yeah, so I actually started originating loans back in 2000. I started as a customer service representative at a company called Town & Country Credit. It was like one of the biggest subprime lenders, right under Countrywide, if you remember them back in the day. And they're focused on like subprime loans, but their niche was that they could close a loan in 7 days. But the interest rates were literally like 3-4 points higher than our next door neighbor competitors. And I started as a customer service representative, and I had a unique ability to open up people and get into the emotional side of the application, which allowed me to get the really sensitive information like date of birth, social security number, and that's how we were actually spiffed. So if you got 4 complete applications, you got to go home early and get paid the full day. And sure enough, dude, right away, I had 4 or 5 different applications, and then I got promoted to a loan officer there, and just immediately, this is before NMLS licensing, and naturally killed it. Yeah.
Cool. I know you mentioned earlier that you worked at New American Funding, which is a retail call center.
Yep.
I know here at Westcap, you're at a broker call center model. So what's the difference between both models?
Yeah, so with like New American Funding, think of it as like, everything's already dialed in. So you have your support systems already in place. The retail model is more or less using loan officers for their licenses. So they fill up a lot of seats, primarily just to get the intel, because you need to be licensed to do that. And then those loan officers hand the baton off into processing. So, you don't really have to do much from a retail aspect besides get the application, the docs, and then submit it, put it into the engine, and then everything takes care of itself. Whereas like the wholesale model, you really need to understand how a loan works and how to put together a loan, because you're involved with a little bit more of the phases of loan origination. So you have to be proactive, you have to be somewhat experienced, but at the end of the day, everything still is the same. Yeah.
So why, as a loan officer, why would I make my life harder and go work at a wholesale broker call center when I have to take a bunch of calls already, instead of staying at retail when I get to do less work?
The answer to that is primarily because when you're working for retail, you're selling a product or interest rate where the company is making most of that margin. You're making a small piece. Now, granted, when the market is good, you're still getting paid pretty well. You're making a good living as a loan officer, but as a broker, you're getting a much bigger chunk of that margin. Now, with retail, I did very well, but you have to do literally 20 plus units to make as much as a broker that only does 3 to 4 units. So it's a huge aspect. And then the pricing, the flexibility, and just the overall freedom of being on the broker side is far different from retail. So with retail, you're chained to your desk. They're on you nonstop. You're working 12, hour days, plus you're also working weekends. Whereas a wholesale, you should definitely have that work ethic, but you have a little bit more freedom with regards to that.
So what you're kind of saying is that the retail call centers it's like a 9 to 5. You work for the man, and on the call center for the broker side, wholesale side, you're more self-employed?
Pretty much. I would say that the retail, they tell you 9 to 5, but they'll work you on a 9 to 9 type schedule. And the return and kind of the growth aspect of it, or potential, is very limited because you're playing politics, right? So you're getting capped in most retail call centers to make only X amount of dollars. And you don't really know what happens on the back end. So most retails, for example, will pay you 25, 30 basis points or per file. Whereas if you're on the wholesale side, you get to get a whole, big chunk of the margin, right, above that 100% threshold. Yeah.
That's cool. So with that, you're saying you're happier on the the call center broker side?
Yeah, definitely. I have experience with wholesale side from working back in like 2004 through 2008 before the market crash on the wholesale. This is before licenses again, but understanding kind of the dynamics of having multiple options. You're not limited or confined to one lender's products or guidelines. You can literally lean on many different lenders and many different outlets versus just being, kind of, again, confined to just one set of programs.
Okay. Question I have for you is, how are the clients? Or is the clientele different on retail? Because I'm guessing retail, you're dealing with the big brands. So when they call you, oh, you're from such and such, it's more credibility than a brokerage where like it's independent, you don't have the big brand name. How is the difference in clientele?
That's a good question. So, when it comes to like brand or image, it's really about how they feel when they first interact with you. Right?
So it's not about the brand.
Correct. It's not about the brand. It's about how you carry yourself, how you engage, how you communicate with them, and the confidence that you have when you do communicate with them. It's not necessarily about, oh yeah, I have a name that's very well known, even though we tend to think that. When you sacrifice that kind of that confidence in thinking that you have to work with a big name, that big name is taking most of your cut. And really
Is it hard to get people to run credit with you though when you're not a big company?
It depends. I mean, me, because I have a lot of experience, I think that it's fairly easy. It's just the sequential order of how I handle that conversation. So, with like a call center, because they do have that image, they can go directly and ask you the date of birth and social. In my case, even when I worked in retail, I never went that route. I always figured how I can attach their emotional side to find that pain first, and then they feel like they've earned the right to move forward in that application. And I still practice that today.
So if someone was new to call center, to being a call center loan officer, what's 3 tips you would give them? I want to clip this one. So if you were a loan officer, if you were giving advice to a loan officer who's starting out in call center, what's the 3 tips you would give them?
Yeah, so the 3 tips to a loan officer who's just starting in a call center, especially if you're coming from like that retail background, then you want to leverage the fact that they are an information vault. So they have tons and tons of data. And a lot of loan officers who start in a call center just typically wait for new leads to come in, when in reality, the Shark Tank or the seasoned leads is actually where it's at. Not only that, but the retread, like the past funded loans or the departed agent funded loans, is where the gold is. It's not necessarily the new people, because the new people coming in, they don't know about you. It's kind of like a first date. Mm-hmm. Whereas the seasoned leads or the past funded leads are more of that X. It's a little bit easier to get in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay, and the other 2?
Yeah, so another one is that when you go into a call center, know that everything is handled for you, so you don't necessarily need to be worried or babysit that file, because that call center, that retail shop has put in place all the roles to make sure that that lead goes from origination or application all the way to funding with little effort from the loan officer.
Okay, and then the 3rd tip you would give?
Yeah, 3rd tip is, you want to leverage the fact that, not only does your organization have a good image or a good reputation, but you want to be able to leverage the fact that they can close loans typically faster than most organizations, because they are usually direct lenders. Mm-hmm. So they fund within house, they underwrite within house, and you're not leaning on third parties that are also working on a pipeline of 80, 90 different loans from 90 different companies.
Since you have a track record of with call centers, how do you decide what states to get approved in it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first off, if you have experience like myself in originating loans, I tend to do better with East Coast people. If you're coming in but you don't really have that track record, I would strongly recommend that you get your footprint wide. So get licensed in every single state so you can get that momentum and you can have that data to look back on. But in regards to myself, I don't necessarily select a particular state, because that, as a broker, it affects my cost per lead, which then affects my cost per submission and funding.
Can you go over that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I only focused in the states that I do very well in, like let's say Florida, Pennsylvania, Maryland, these East Coast states, and I only use that even though my footprint is like 18 different states, then I'm fighting for those states that are typically pretty popular, and so my cost per lead goes up just in order for me to get my share. Whereas if I utilize all 18 of my states, then I can keep my cost per lead fairly low. So instead of putting $30 or $29 per lead, I can safely get away with $24 per lead.
So you have a blended cost.
Correct.
Because you have more states.
Correct. It keeps me busy.
So you're not always fighting for the states that are popular, even though
Correct.
You're closing them. But what makes you decide, hey, let me ease off of this state? Just because, hey, I got too many leads in the state already? Like, what makes you transition to other states?
Yeah, it's a good question, because there will come times where, you need that origination and you think that, hey, all my deals are coming from the East Coast, let me go and shut off the West Coast. The problem is, though, is that you need to keep your momentum up. And if you solely focus on one part of the country and your calls slow down, your momentum slows down. And so you get almost rusty with it. And if you have high traffic, then you continuously do that process that continues that momentum. So you can't necessarily, ignore, disregard certain states thinking that all the business is coming from here. All the other states are still opportunities that allow you to include them into your drip system, and you constantly keep in contact with those leads, which will eventually turn into a deal when the market, improves.
So thank you so much for all that information. So let's talk about, what's your big plan for 2024?
Yeah.
What are your goals?
So in 2024, my primary goal is, now that I have an opportunity to get back in and originate alongside with a team that I'm going to build, my goal is to take the model.
So you're building a team in 2024?
That's correct, yeah. So I am building a team, and I'm going to take all the the tricks and the hacks that I learned within the retail model call center and provide that to the broker outlet. So the primary reason why a lot of loan officers are scared to join the broker outlet is they think that they're alone. They think that they don't have the support. They think that they have to invest a lot of money with a high risk. And until you actually have that proper guidance, the proper support, and the proper mentoring to show the know-how and how to make a loan, then of course it's natural to feel that fear. But when you do have that guidance and you have someone who has been on both sides of the spectrum, then you know that you can rest assured just doing what you do every day and learn as you go. So by incorporating the retail corporate call center environment to a broker model, retail is just high frequency. It's high production, high numbers, and the broker model typically goes lower frequency, lower application, lower units because you get paid so much. But the fact is, though, is that you can't necessarily be married to the commission or the RIPs or the tiers. You got to be married to the process and the system. Mm-hmm. And when you marry to the process and the system, then you create an engine. And when that engine mirrors the retail model and you put it in a broker platform, then the numbers they'll naturally grow. It'll naturally become a beast. It's just the commissions and the revenue aspect of it just gets amplified.
So you're talking about 2024, you're starting the team. So what's the first step of you starting your team?
Fortunately, I have a channel, SalesRemastered. So I got followers all across the country that needs that support. They need the guidance. They need the mentoring that they're not getting from their sales managers, their sales trainer, or even their company. And it's unfortunate because they're working their tail off under the premise of they have the right support or they have, people that they can delegate the task to. So what my goal is to really provide that support system that you would find in a retail environment to this broker model.
So are you going to take your audience, reach out to your current audience to kind of say, hey, Daniel's open for hire. Like, I think I'm trying to go towards the sentiment of what is your next step? So are you going to reach out to your current audience? Are you going to, what is it that you're going to do to get them to join you?
Yeah. So I think that, I will leverage the audience, but also I have a lot of loan officers who've worked with me in the past and they kind of know my pedigree. So it'll be a little easier to convert them over, but you want to continue scaling. You want to continue growing your team. So the audience aspect will come in with regards to scaling, but to build a solid core, I could take someone with little to no experience and turn them into a beast within 6 months.
What are you looking for in a loan officer to turn them into a beast? What trait should they at least have before you can convert them into a beast?
Great question. I think enthusiasm. No fear of failing, no fear of messing up, because I'm a firm believer that, the faster that you break things, then the faster that you're going to figure out what not to do. So my primary focus is finding individuals who are enthusiastic and are aware of the blessing that they have to work in this industry, because it really is a blessing. You can't really find too many industries where you could work and push buttons on a keyboard and be on the phone in a ventilated, air-conditioned room and make 6 figures a month. Yeah. That's a great opportunity to have, but a lot of individuals just are in their heads and they think too much. And the reason why they think too much is because they don't have the right support. So if I could fuse in that support, the right mentoring, the guidance, and the experience, then I can show them an outlet or create a bridge for them to get to where they want to go.
Okay. So if you if a loan officer is looking at right you, Daniel, and they're struggling in 2023, what advice would you give them?
So my advice would be, the reason why you're struggling is because you're confined and limited to your current platform. You're also not being provided the support and the mentoring that's required to move through this industry. The industry and the market in itself is always going to constantly change. But one thing that's not going to change is the fact that money is a necessity. It's needed for everyone. What we do is we sell money. We don't sell rates. We don't sell programs. We don't sell terms. We sell solutions. We provide fixes. And if you can understand that, then you'll understand that your job is not to sell people, it's to serve and to help people. Provide solutions, don't provide rates and programs and guidelines. And if you could do that, then you'll naturally get what you want in return because you've been providing everybody what they need.
Now it's your time to hit the thumbs up if this video helped you. I love engaging with you in the comment section below. Lastly, please share this video with someone else that can benefit from this topic. Thanks for subscribing. Look out for the notification for my next video, and I'll see you there.